some wind damage as well. Notice the curve in this line that indicates the strongest storm, the strongest part, and where we have the apex of that curve right in J-Town. J-Town, you're probably seeing some very strong winds right now. We can see that pushing out. We can see that on the radar even with that storm pushing out. Kevin?
Well, thanks. Just got off the phone with Metro Safe here in Louisville. I wanted to ask them what type of power outages they've seen, what type of info that they've had that may be of consequence to folks across the area. They say the southwest portion of Jefferson County has been hit, and there are some trees down there, but nothing major across the county. So just a few trees and power lines down in those areas. That's led to LG&E's nearly 500 customers without power. Let's go over to the big board. We'll run down the complete list of warnings that we have with Lauren Jones. Lauren?
Yeah, Kevin, still holding on to several severe thunderstorm warnings. More importantly, the tornado warnings for that Boeing segment that we continue to watch. Tornado warning in effect, remaining in effect for Jefferson County, Kentucky. That does include the far southern portion of Jefferson County. Again, that is until, as we head throughout the next several minutes here, until 4:55. Bullitt County also included in that. The severe thunderstorm warnings from Spencer until 5:10, all the way from Grayson, Nelson, and points like Trimble, Meade, Floyd, Breckenridge, Bullitt, all of those till 5:10. And this is just all for that line of storms that continues to push from west to east. It's something that we'll continue to watch very closely as we head throughout the remainder of the morning. We've been tracking this developing situation from all angles. Of course, the Wave 3 weather team has been here since very early in the morning, and John joins me now. And this will eventually turn into a new situation as well as we continue to track damage across the area.
Yeah, I've been watching here for the last about hour the outages in both Indiana and Kentucky. Let me start with the Metro, because Kevin's talking about how they're doubling, tripling. That's true, but they were much higher about an hour ago. There was a total of 1,800 outages in the Jefferson County area, but 1,300 of those were in the Orchard Grass Hills area, which is that pocket of 71 in the Snyder. They've got that knocked down now to just very few. But what's interesting is they're popping up all over the Metro, but nothing over 500. So they're all pockets of a couple of hundred here and there. And as you've been talking about, as Kevin's mentioned, right down Dixie Highway corridor and out into Fort Knox, and then stringing right out into eastern Jefferson County where these outages are. So yes, they're going up, but no huge pockets so far with the outages. And in Indiana, what's interesting is Duke Energy is reporting 8,400 outages up in Indiana, but the only area, really interviewing area, is Lawrence County. They've got just over 1,000. So nothing until you get up to about Lawrence County for a significant outage.
And John, those numbers will probably go up as we continue to track this line from the west to the east. The tornado warning remaining in effect for parts of Jefferson County and Bullitt County, Kentucky, until 4:55 this morning. Of course, you're going to stay here with us.
Yeah.
And Kevin has the latest.
One more thing. I just got a notice from MSD has issued their advisory for the Ohio River. Now, when we get a situation like this and storms like this, they say no fishing, wading, swimming, anything, no water contact because of sewer overflows for the next 48 hours. So be advised of that as well. There will be some sewer overflows.
And we'll watch that. And Kevin, with school, school delays we have, of course, on wave3.com, and we'll continue to watch this and really impacting into our eastern counties now. What we can expect at least over the next hour or so for part of the Wave 3 viewing area?
Yeah, because we still have the tornado warning out until 4:55 for Bullitt and Jefferson counties. You've seen the radar full screen. We have been mainly concerned with just some gusty winds. Brian Good has been on the phone with not only folks here in Jefferson County, but we've had a report out of Harrison County with a number of trees down along 111. That's Highway 111. It takes you down toward Caesars or Horseshoe Casino there. We're still working to confirm if that indeed is true. He remains on the phone with those folks as we speak across portions of southern Indiana. So we will continue to promise you that we're keeping in touch with a number of law enforcement agencies across Kentucky and southern Indiana to make sure we're passing along the most up-to-date information across the region. Now, again, in the city of Louisville, much of the action is pushing out to the east. That takes it across portions of Bullitt County, Shelby, Spencer counties, and as it moves to the north and east, it's still going to pack a punch, but it is weakening somewhat. We would still anticipate that there could be a few trees or power lines down, but all in all, it's passed by with winds of 50 to 60 miles an hour, it looks like, with just a few trees down. That's the best we can tell at this point. Again, it's very early. It's 4:45 in the morning, and a number of places that may have damage have not been discovered just yet. And I think that as we go through the day, we'll start to see more and more places come to light that we have had some trees and power lines that have been knocked down across the area. Let me zoom out on the radar view. We've had you on this tight view of Louisville for a little while, but as we zoom out to our home view, you can see a number of places that will still be impacted by the storms, including Henry County, down into Carroll, Trimble, Franklin County. Moving to our south, we've mentioned portions of Shelby and Spencer counties, Washington, Marion, down into Greene, Taylor, and Adair. Yes, this line still has to pass by you, and with it will come some gusty winds. And I think now as we start to transition into the early morning hours here, it's going to become more of a rain event to our south, where we'll be dealing with some heavy rain totals and the possibility of some flash flooding. Right now, the greatest wind threat is centered across our viewing area from portions of southern Indiana along the Ohio River back into the metro area, and then on to the south down along the Bluegrass Parkway near Elizabethtown and Bardstown. That's where we have some pretty strong winds pushing through at this point. We'll continue moving that off to the east, and eventually, once the threat of those strong winds passes by, we'll be able to just deal with the rain across the area. Let's go over to Brian Good. Brian?
Yeah, still checking on several reports of folks talking about the winds picked up over 50 miles per hour around the Valley Station area. PRP was a very hot spot for some gusty winds and some very heavy rain. And now, again, the storm is moving to the north and east, but it seems like most of the reports we got were in the southwest corner of Jefferson County. Since then, the reports have eased off a little bit, and the storm motion has also slowed down a little bit. So hopefully that's a sign this is becoming more of a heavy rain event, and hopefully the worst of the winds of this bow that's moving through the area has weakened much more. So hopefully this is the end of the tornado warning, but it's still in effect for another 10 minutes. So we're going to keep an eye on it. It's still moving to the northeast at about 45 miles per hour. You heard Lauren and John talking about the power outages that have been extensive, and I think that's probably going to be our biggest issue here this morning. It's going to be the flash flooding, and a lot of folks running into some lines that are down in the area, it looks like, Kevin.
Again, a lot of folks curious to know about Jefferson County schools. A number of schools across the area have been delayed. I'm going to keep the radar view up. We'll go back over to John Bowl, who's been keeping up to date with not only the school delays and the power outages and the news aspect of this, but John, I know I've received a number of emails wanting to know about school closings. Has JCPS issued any type of statement for this morning?
Not that I've received as of yet. You can go to way3.com for that. I have been looking at a number of 2-hour delays all across southern Indiana, and of course the big school districts, Greater Clark, New Albany, Floyd County, West Clark, and Providence, already fired off a 2-hour delay hours ago, expecting this to come. And a quick update on the outages, Kevin. We've got one larger one now of 1,200 customers here tucked up in the Indian Hills area there. So they're popping up all over the place, but pretty much southwest Jefferson County and then up in the eastern Jefferson County area. Again, 1,200.
1,200. So that would tell us that something's been hit there, whether it be a substation or maybe a neighborhood with a number of trees down. We know that something's been hit up in that area.
Yeah, that's brand new. And again, the Orchard Hills one, which was our biggest one of the morning, 1,300 customers. That's been knocked down to just a couple of hundred. So they're working fast and furiously out there.
Yeah, and as this radar view will show, they're going to be working at it for quite some time, because as this storm system pushes through portions of Clark County and eventually works its way up toward Madison and Jefferson County, Indiana, that means it's passed by Louisville, but still will go through portions of Oldham, portions of Trimble, Carroll, down into Henry, Shelby, Spencer counties of Kentucky. Still could see some wind damage in those areas, so KU and LG&E, or your electric co-op provider, will still have some work to do in places. The bad news is some of the stronger winds actually hit us here in Louisville throughout the last hour or so, as we track that same system from Muhlenberg County through Grayson, up through portions of northern Hardin, and then right into Louisville. And now we're tracking it. You still see it bowing out a little bit right into portions of Oldham and Shelby counties as we move it to the north and east. Let me zoom into it. I'll give you a few places that may be experiencing the strongest winds at this point. Again, it's to our north, right along I-71, moving right toward the LaGrange area, not far from Buckner or Crestwood. If you know the area of Oldham County, you know those places. It will eventually move into parts of Henry County, Andy Weingarten country up there, moving right along 71 from Campbellsburg to Newcastle to Eminence, another familiar place for a winter tornado. Happens a couple years ago, and we're seeing that not only are we having the strong winds, but we have had reports of tornadoes throughout the morning hours. That threat is diminishing despite the fact that the tornado warning continues for for Metro Louisville, including Jefferson and Bullitt counties, until 4:55 this morning. So still another 7 minutes on that tornado warning. Let's go over to Christy Dutton. Christy.
Yes, I've been trying to keep up with all the social media with Facebook and Twitter, also our live blog, and a lot of people I notice are saying that they're either losing power, the power's flickering on or off, or they're afraid they're going to lose power. So while we still have you here, I wanted to let you know, a lot of people asking, are you all streaming online? Oh, how do we get to that? Here's how. I have this now on wave3.com. So you're going to log on to wave3.com. And right here, one of the first options, watch live, Wave 3 Sunrise. That's where we are right now. This is the time period we are. You just click on that and you'll be able to watch our live streaming video on Wave 3 Sunrise. It is about a minute or two behind, so just keep that in mind for warnings and when they expire. But if you do lose power, you can watch us live on Wave 3. You just press the play button, and I think we hear another warning coming out. So I'm going to hand this back over to Kevin. What's that latest warning?
Yeah, thanks, Christy. The severe thunderstorm warning coming in for places to our south along the southern part of this line. That would include Elizabethtown. That's down into southeastern Hardin County. It also includes LaRue, Nelson, and Hart counties. So portions of LaRue and Nelson, Hardin, and Hart, this general area right along 65 bounded by the Bluegrass Parkway there, we'll be seeing some strong winds. They're saying about 60-mile-per-hour winds, not out of the question with that. That would be near the Glendale area. We were down there for the Glendale Crossing Festival, so we know you well as moving to the northeast at 55 miles an hour. Let me zoom into that area to our south. Once again, the tornado warning continues for about another 5 minutes here in Jefferson County down to Bullitt County. We've been watching that. There's no real big sign of tornadic weather going on in the area, though we have had a few power outages reported, a few trees down, and now down to our south with about 60-mile-per-hour winds across portions of Hardin County over into parts of Nelson County. That's where we find New Haven. There's Hodgenville and LaRue County, and then down to the south toward Munfordville and Bonneville. That's Hart County. So it's this general area that we've zoomed into here that's under a severe thunderstorm warning at this time. Again, still some strong winds possible with that as it moves on off to the east. Back to our home view we go, and again, it is that line of storms on the leading edge where we have the most powerful winds pushing into the area. We're going to check in with Lauren Jones here in just a second. Let's go over to Brian Good. Brian, any additional damage reports coming in? The reason I'm asking for this, for the folks at home that may be wondering, is because, Brian, that gives us a good indication of what the weather has actually done. We get a very good indication of how severe the weather is based on some of the damage reports coming in.
You know, we've seen this situation a lot where we've had these very high winds show up on the radar, and sometimes they translate to the ground, sometimes they do not, and we get lucky. So far, it looks like the winds are very high aloft, and whether or not they made it all the way to the ground, we're still trying to determine. So far, most of the gusts have been in the order of about 45 to maybe 55 miles per hour. We haven't had anything excessive than that. The severe thunderstorm warnings, though, are still going to stay in effect to the east just because this is a sharp little bowling stick, a little bit of a punch, if you will, in the actual squall line that's moving through, and it's a little bit of a punch that's moving through that is causing that potential for some high winds. When you do that, anytime you push the line out, the sides of it on either side have a tendency to spin a little bit, and it's that edges on either side of the bowl we got to watch for the chance for some brief rotations. But again, at this point, with the forward motion slowing down a little bit, Kevin, I think that's working into our favor. Weather Service at this time has now expired the tornado warning for the city of Louisville. All
right, so good news there. Lauren is here. Lauren, no tornado warnings at this point, so that's the good news. Bad news is we're still dealing with this line of storms down along I-65 that can produce those strong winds, and I think we'll still see some power outages down that way. Have you had any new reports coming in?
A lot of people just saying, well, we're only seeing severe thunderstorm warnings, so do we have to be as mindful as what we are when you have a tornado warning? And a common misconception, a lot of people think, you think tornado warning, okay, I need to pay attention. Severe thunderstorm warning, not so much. But in a case like this, when you have straight line winds, at times more damage is done than an actual winds from tornadoes. And this is something we'll watch. And it really eerily similar to January 2008 with the storms that rolled through, the straight line winds, something we're going to be battling. And I imagine down tree limbs and power outages will be a big problem over the next few hours.
Yeah, I think we'll still see more of those as well. And I think you're right. So many people think a tornado warning, you think back to March 2nd. It just brings up the fact of these monster tornadoes that push through. That never was the forecast for today, even though we had isolated tornadoes in the forecast. Anytime you get a squall line scenario, they're typically a lot smaller. They're embedded. You can't see them. They're rain wrapped, and it's just something that has rotation with it that provides the ability for the radar to say, hey, there's rotation and there is a tornado. But you're right, straight line winds can be equally as damaging. Lauren, I'll let you walk us through the radar here, point out what's going on as we take a look at some of the info coming in.
Well, Kevin, the strongest of the storm has made it out of the Louisville metro area. If we can zoom in, Brian, to let's do some street level so we can get down to the lowest level of the ground, see where the heaviest of the rain is, see where the strongest winds are. If you're waking up this morning, getting ready for the kids for school, it's a 4:53 this morning. We have from Simpsonville all the way to Chestnut Grove into Fisherville into parts of Route if you're traveling on Interstate 265. Outside, of course, we still have the heavy rains across the area. So this will be an area of concern. The heaviest of the winds, the heaviest of the rain has tracked just to the east of the Louisville metro. But as we take a closer look right now, of course, Shepherdsville all the way down into parts of Veachdale, Lincoln Ridge. These roads are going to be hit the hardest over the next several minutes, where you have that Boeing segment, the strongest of the winds just pushing to the east. And that's where you get the threat for the damaging straight line winds. And that will be our area of concern. But notice, Kevin, as we head over the last at least probably 15 to 30 minutes, this has weakened somewhat. Still dealing with strong winds, but not nearly as impressive as what it appeared to be just several minutes ago.
Well, and you heard the siren there from the outdoor cameras that we have across the area. The sirens continue to go off in some places, even for the wind speeds that may be ongoing with these storms as they pass by the area. Lauren was right when she explained that the straight line winds to our south could be packing a punch of 60 to 70 mile-per-hour winds. It's not out of the question that a few of those isolated areas get hit with those strong winds. It's not going to be everywhere, and we've stressed that through the overnight hours that many places would be unharmed by these storms passing by, but there would be a few places with those very strong winds to take place. Back to our home view we go as we get back on Magic Track, and you'll see that line of storms moving through the area is starting to weaken just a bit. The leading edge of that losing less of that red color. That's a good thing. Left behind will be some heavy rain that will continue to fall through the morning hours. That may end as a period of actually a little light snow in here later on today. Not expecting any accumulation out of that. While we keep the radar view up, we'll transition back over to John Bowl and Lauren Jones, who have been working through the newsroom to gather some information what's coming in on school delays, on power outages, on things that may affect your morning as you start waking up. As we start to come up on that 5 o'clock hour, many folks' alarms will be going off, and they may have not been awakened by the storms moving through. So, guys, a quick recap of what's happening, and then we'll begin again at 5.
Okay. First, most importantly, I just checked with the Wave Through Web staff. No storm damage reports of any significance at all reported in the metro. School delays, nothing really new. No call from JCPS. You can see that at the bottom of the screen. Again, all southern Indiana so far, and West Clark, Greater Clark, West Clark, New Albany, Floyd County, and Providence are the big school systems there that are going to go ahead and have a 2-hour delay. And as for the outages, Kevin, 2 big ones now to report of over 1,000 up in the northeast corner there along I-71 and the Watterson kind of Indian Hills and just outside of it. Otherwise, very well spread out, but nothing really big, not over 50 or 100 outages in any particular pocket.
In that populated area of Orchard Grass Hills did have 1,300, and those have been reduced, correct?
Been way reduced, but the other 2 big pockets are right around there. So something, obviously, some heavy wind hit that pocket right up there around the Watterson and 71 and then out to the Snyder.
And a lot of people will be traveling at least over the next few hours, and I think we'll see more damage as people continue to wake up. And Kevin, as the line continues to move through the area, this will turn into a heavy rain event. Already have a saturated ground, 1 to 2 inches of rain, additional possible across the area.
Yeah, we'll stop the radar view as a matter of fact, and I'll point out that down in parts of Bullitt County, they picked up 68/100ths of an inch. That's over a half an inch, less than 1 inch, of course, in just 15 minutes. That gives an idea of how fast the rain is falling and gives you an idea of how much more they'll see because the rain is just beginning there across portions of the area. So on the radar view, the heaviest rain now passing by E-Town. This is I-65 that takes you up past the Claremont exit as you move into portions of Bullitt County, past Shepherdsville, up into southern Jefferson County toward Okolona. Then as you move into the metro area over toward Oldham County near LaGrange, down into portions of western Shelby County, we have some very heavy rain. That pushes into parts of Henry County, moving up into Trimble County, Carroll County. So you get the idea. Everybody's going to be dealing with some heavy rainfall totals as we move throughout the day. John earlier mentioned the Ohio River and staying away from that simply because of sewage overflow that often happens when we have heavy rain. But the Ohio River is also going to be on the rise because of the number of, because of the amount of rain that we're seeing across the area. So folks that may have your boats tied to the docks that are mounted in the ground, you know, when that water rises, you need to let out the rope. Well, you're going to have to do that as the Ohio River is expected to rise with this rain that's moving through the area. So a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, the rain is falling outside now, and that may become a bigger threat as we move through the rest of the morning. The high wind threat is starting to diminish just a bit. We can't completely fade it out of the area, but the high wind threat is slowly fading away. With that, we'll be left with some heavy rain across the area and surveying some of the damage that we've had left behind across Kentuckiana. Again, I'm going to take you to our home view and point out what's happening across Kentuckiana. First of all, it's rain back out to the west. So the western half of Kentucky socked in rain. All of Indiana seeing rain at this point. That will be moving off to the east, and as that continues through the morning hours, we'll have to deal with those rain totals. It was along the leading edge of this that we had the powerful storms that produced isolated spin-up tornadoes and also the straight-line wind damage in places. We've had wind damage reported out of Washington County, Indiana, where a roof was blown off of a residence, and we've also had a number of places back to the south and west of us with some damage as well from trees and power lines being toppled over. Even here in Louisville, we've had a number of areas with power outages, likely because of trees or power lines down. Coming up now at 5 o'clock, Wave 3 News Sunrise will be